everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're going to be doing my fall breeze and autumn leaves egg design, and oh, I love this piece. In fact, this is my second version, but this one, I just absolutely, I love it. Anyways, we're going to start off right away with our polymer clay gun, and this is my Sculpey polymer clay gun, and I'm going to be using that middle clover disc. Now, to get the modification on this, I'm going to put the link to the polymer clay gun video that I have on this in the description area. So if you want to check that out and see how I did it, absolutely no problem. But once I get the clay in there, and yes, I am using Sculpey Original white clay, but I can use white clay too. It doesn't matter because you're going to be painting this thing anyway. So right away here, I squeezed out a whole long strip, and I'm going to cut this. And usually when I cut out a whole long strip, I'll get like 3 sections out of this, or I should say 3 sections I could loop into a little circular piece. And generally these pieces are about 3 inches to about 3.5 inches in length, and it really is determined by how much you really want that to be a small kind of little loop or a larger one. And like you could tell right here, that's 3.5 inches. I'm going to bring that around. I'm going to bring in my burnisher, and I'm going to try and connect it in. And when I try to connect it in, I try to make it where that cut line that I had to create, when I go over that burnisher, if I can try and make it fairly seamless, I try to do so. A lot of times it isn't, but that always leaves room for creativity. You never can tell. Anyways, I'm bringing in 2 of my eggs I've drained. These are what I call my horizontal eggs, so they'll sit on the base horizontally. I'll bring a little bit of my super glue in, and yes, this is on fresh unbaked clay, and I'll just roll that opening. I like to take the edge of that opening and roll it right into that hole, and then just kind of settle it down. And as you can see there, I got a pretty decent base on it. And then I'll go ahead and bake this thing for 7 to 10 minutes at 275 degrees. Once the egg and the base are cooled, then take out your black matte acrylic paint and paint the entire thing in the black. It will not matter if the base has turned any color or not. You're going to paint it black anyway. Now once this thing is dried up, I'm going to go ahead and create a line running horizontally around the egg. And I'm using 4 tiles here. I'm taking 4 of my baking tiles, laying my pencil flat, and then letting this egg just roll around onto that graphite pencil, and there you go. You have a perfect line. You don't have to worry about it. It's like, yay! And the best bit about that then is you can bring in your white clay, and I've rolled this out fairly thin. This was on a number 4 setting I rolled this out. And I brought in eventually a paper guide, which was a 1/2 inch in width, and it was fairly long right there, my paper guide, and I just cut a piece of that white clay to this particular guide. Once I have that, I'm going to take that particular strip and I'm going to run that around using that pencil guide as my guide. I know, nutty. But yes, using that pencil guide or that pencil mark as my guide. And I'm going to run that clay right around the horizontal part of this egg. Now, I know you saw there I used a small dot of super glue. And I tried putting this thing on a couple of different times and it just was not taking to the egg. So I had to come in with and I'm talking a very small dot on the egg itself where I could just get this thing started so I could start running around. And I finally figured out I had to do in 4 spots. So this way then it would connect in, I could get the clay to lay down, and that way then it would come to 1 dot of, super glue on all 4 sides, north, south, east, west, if you will. And this way then it would come in on the egg and it would lay down nicely. So keep that in mind. You might have trouble trying to get the clay on the eggshell. That super glue, little dot, comes in handy every once in a while. Anyways, as I get to the back here, again, I've got that cut mark, right? So I'm going to bring my burnisher in and I'm going to try and join these 2 edges together in a fairly nice way. And if you have anything extra sticking up like I did there, take and cut that away as well. And then also, if it's possible, just kind of use your blade to firm up and form up that strip so it looks nice and even all the way around the eggshell. Okay, now we're going to bring in our green and purple clay, and the green is actually, I wanted to go with the bright green pearl by Primo, but it was just too dark. So I went with the wasabi instead, so that's what this is. That's wasabi green. And I actually did mix a little pearl in there, but I tried to keep the brightness of that clay mainly. And then I brought in a little bit of purple clay that I had, and we're just going to create that stack. I'm putting it all together, and then I'm going to cut a slice off of this, and that slice is going to be run through my Atlas pasta machine on a #1 setting, and then I'm going to slowly, or I should say, yeah, slowly step down that particular setting down to a #4. So I'm going to run through my stripes on my Atlas pasta machine through a 1, then through a #2, then through a #3 setting, and then finally through a #4. Once I get it through that #4 setting, I'm going to lay this down onto my tile, and I'm going to cut off the one end, then cut a small checker piece, and then bring that forward and cut another piece, and so on, creating this row of checker. This will then be placed around on your eggshell, and I want to say, you know, right next to the white band. And if you need to, go ahead and use a little bit of super glue to possibly tack it down and push it up against that white band. It'll help kind of stay down as well. But you may need to use a small dot of super glue just to get it started. Okay, so at this point I've gotten my checker put around on both sides of the white band, and I'm going to bring in my Skinner blend of my yellow to magenta, and we'll place that down onto the surface of my tile. I'm going to bring in my Keoker Autumn type cutters, and we're going to use those leaf, I just love these leaves. And I love doing this with these cutters. It's just so much fun. What can I say? Now you can use your cornstarch. I do have my baby was it my baby powder here, but you can use cornstarch too. And when you do, go ahead and make sure that those cutters are, you know, have that release agent on them before you cut down into the sheet of clay. Now, I like to take it where I put a little bit of the powder down on my tile, and then I just kind of use it. It's almost like flour when you're baking cookies and stuff. I mean, I can't help it. Anyways, I'm cutting out all sorts of different little leaves in this, and I just love this blend. This is one of my favorite blends ever, if you didn't know that by now. You go back to other videos, you're like, yeah, she likes that magenta yellow thing. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to be cutting out a lot of different leaves with my cutters, and when I do, we're going to then gently pull up that Skinner blend of my yellow to magenta. Now, I like to take something like that after I've cut this all out, and I'll remake that blend all over again. I might have to add in a little yellow, maybe a little of that magenta on the end or on the bottom side of it, and that's fine. You know, the nice thing is that it gives me another sheet to work from of my magenta to yellow to go ahead and create more and more of these leaves. So as you can tell right there, and then see how I just kind of fold it up, that just makes it where I can go ahead and reform that sheet all over again. Now that sheet too was also rolled out on a #2 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and I found that was really the best sizing for these particular cutters. Also notice here, I scissor back and forth using my blade to get those leaves up. This way then they don't deform. So if your clay is pretty soft, I really found this is a great way of getting up any kind of cutter piece I've made. It just, instead of trying to come in on one side just solid, when I scissor it, it's almost like it has that motion go back and forth, and it doesn't get the piece of clay out of, it doesn't deform it much. So anyway, coming in here, I'm going to take one of my larger leaves, I'm placing it upright, and I'm going to do a north, south, east, west with the larger leaves, okay? I'll put them on those four sides, and then I'll take the smaller leaves, put those around in there as well. And then I also have my gold and brown clay here, or my gold brown clay, and I'm going to create little stems or little vine work here where it'll connect into the leaves and I'll have leaves coming off of it. Once I get all of my leaves and my vines put into this little band that's running around my eggshell, I'm going to go in with some black clay. I'm going to create some small little balls, and I'm going to place those right at the base at most of the leaves. And then I'll use my knitting needle to make that indent so I can go back in after it's baked and place in some really pretty pointed backed rhinestones. But from here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys just watch my hands talk as I keep creating more and more of my leaf design around on this eggshell. All right, so at this point, the egg has been baked at 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes. And remember, that's at my altitude and my climate. Check your area as to where you live. It might take you longer or shorter. I doubtably shorter. It'd probably be longer to get it done. Anyways, I'm bringing in my Ateco oval cutters, and I'm using the smallest one. And I'm going to take one of those pieces of clay, which has been rolled out again on a number 4 setting, and I'm going to place that right on the top of my eggshell. And when I do, I like to, it's kind of a thing of, I put a small dot of super glue down right in the center on the top of that eggshell. This way then when that's or I should say when that oval goes down, it will attach in and I won't have to just completely be messing with it and having it come away with my finger, which can happen. So this way then it'll stay down. You can see even it wanted to come up with my finger. Yeah. Now use a little bit of that super glue. There's nothing wrong with using that. I don't use the liquid clay here because it's clay to eggshell and it's not going to adhere. Whereas if I use a little bit of super glue, it will adhere. Anyway, I'm placing that down on my egg. I'm using my blade to make sure I form up that oval real nice. And then I'll cut another piece from that purple and green stack. And I'll run that back through on my Atlas pasta machine on a number 4 setting. And then start making that same little bit of checker. We're going to place that around the smaller oval there. And then we're going to move on to one of my favorite things. I created a sign for you guys. And other than playing in polymer clay, I love drawing my own artwork. I don't really show it that much, but I really enjoy it. And so I drew out this sign for my eggshell design and decided to offer it up to everyone here for free. If you look in my description area, you will find the link to it. My plan here is to create more eggshell designs using my 2D or my drawn artwork. And in doing so, if you want to get that drawn artwork, I will offer it up in my description area for a small fee, for a small price. And you'll be able to get the PDF of it. And that's why I want to test it out here and see if you guys like this and see what you think about it. Now that PDF is going to have different sized pieces of this sign. And as you can tell right here, that's what I've got right here. The black has been rolled out on a number 3 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and these have already been transferred. So these are all clay transfers. As you can tell, the one there was cut down. I'm going to do that to this other one. I liked the smaller one, but I thought it was probably just a little bit too small, so I'm taking a little bit larger of that same design. I'm just using my scissors after I've made that transfer technique and cutting it out. Now, when I made that transfer, I went with I did the liquid polymer clay, the clear translucent, to take the image off the paper. And then once I had that image off the paper, I put that onto a piece of white clay that was rolled out really on my number 9, the thinnest setting you can get. And I use a piece of my freezer paper to make sure that it's on that paper. It's easier to keep that clay on there and also easier for the transfer overall. So that's what that piece is. I'm then taking that white cutout piece now, use a little bit of super glue, a little bit of my translucent liquid clay, adhere it down onto my black clay, and then use my needle tool to trace out that particular piece. Once I get that done, I place that into my oven at 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes. At this point now, the sign has been baked, and I made a couple of them, but I thought, let's go with the little, I was looking at that, I thought maybe the larger one. This is really a judgment call for you. Whichever size you like best, place that on the top. So that's what I did. I went with a little bit smaller size, used a little bit of super glue, and mind you, that clay is still unbaked. just a little bit of super glue. I know you could use the liquid clay, but it won't necessarily stick and stay in place, and that's what I need it to do. If you want to use liquid clay around that area, go ahead and do so. I'm then bringing in another Skinner blend of my yellow to my red, and I'm going to create a few more leaves and place them around the sign on the top part of my eggshell. So once more, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I complete up the top part of this egg. Once more, I've baked this egg at 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes so I could get the top all taken care of. When I got that done though, I brought in my Folk Art bronze metal metallic paint and I brought in my copper metallic paint. And I decided really these two colors work beautifully in this Skinner blend. I could lay a little bit of that, I want to say the bronze metal down on the yellow parts of it, and it works in beautifully. Has that little bit of a shimmer and a little bit of a grab to the eye, and so it just brings out that yellow just a little bit. And then the copper bit, I placed that down kind of on the yellow and red areas on my leaves, and it just, oh, I get the EBGBs. And I love it. Okay, I'm a little weird, okay? Anyway, I just placed that down on, I just brushed it on some of these leaves and just enjoyed the glimmer of that metallic. Now, you don't have to do this part, but, oh, I just, you know, I can't quite get away from them. I just love them that much. They just add that shine, that shimmer. Anyways, once I got that done, I decided to bring in my pointed back rhinestones and start gluing those into place in each of my little black dots. So I placed that all around where the leaf area is there and got that all together. Once I got that done, then I brought in my clear rhinestone chain and I wanted to add more flash, more fun to this eggshell design, and I knew that would work really great. Now, once I got all of this rhinestone chain down, and to tell you the truth, you don't have to do this part. You don't have to use the metallic paint. You could just go with just the clay colors and everything, but I thought it would just be so much more fun. You get a little more sparkle, a little more flash. but there was still one thing that was missing, and I know you guys are all going to guess. Guess what it is? Guess what it is? Yep, it's my white Posca marker, and I love that thing. I really do because, okay, you could use white acrylic paint and use your little tiny ball tool to get some really great dots, but I still like to go back to this crazy paint pen, and I think part of it is because of the no muss, no fuss. You know, anytime you pour out a little bit of paint onto some kind of, either I use a tile or onto a little piece of paper or whatever, it's still a little bit of a waste. Whereas when I go in to use my paint pen, it's all in the pen itself. So I decided to start making just a little bit of a dot pattern on each of these leaves, and that detail, yes, oh baby, it worked great. I loved it. And I loved placing this around onto this egg. It brought out everything, just made everything shimmer, shine, brought the details, was that last little bit of necessary detail that I needed. But once I finished up doing all that little dot detail on each of those leaves, I then went back in, and I could leave it just like this. I wouldn't have to do anything more. However, I decided I wanted to protect the paint on the eggshell itself. And in doing so, that black matte paint, you know, that I used to cover at the very beginning on the entire egg, it really did need to be protected. I decided to go ahead and paint that using my water-based varnish. And then I decided to also go ahead and protect the leaves that I had painted with the metallic paints and with that Posca paint pen. Nice way to keep all those details on there and for them not to be rubbed off. Okay, so this is the end result of creating my Fall Breeze and Autumn Leaves eggshell design. Please use this for study and reference, and if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.